Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a sophomore, and this is for all three of you. Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis?
Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Will?
The New York Jets.
No, I'm going to hold you to an answer on that. What makes America the greatest country in the world? Why is America
Not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of her paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always?
Hey.
And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore. Enough?
Welcome back to Eff Your Feelings. We have Daniel in today. We are going to be talking about fathers' rights. We know that the system is corrupt. We know that it is against all of us. So hopefully we can get an insight on what we can do to help fathers get their children back, or even keep their children. So let's bring Daniel up. How's it going, Daniel? You doing all right?
Doing good.
Today?
How you doing?
Hey, not too bad. I really applaud you for stepping up and getting out there and trying to figure out how to get our fathers' rights back. But what actually made you decide to start advocating for this?
I am like most people in life, my parents got divorced. Divorce rates are so high right now that most everybody you meet is going to be the child of a broken home, as is the common words. When my parents got divorced, I was at that age where if I really wanted to fight it, I could have pushed, but my kid brother couldn't have. So when my parents got divorced, they made the decision for us. And in that, while I'm 12 years old, I watched as my parents used us children to attack each other. And so going through that history at 12 years old, at the point in which I started dating, many of my relationships were very short-lived. Until I had a child of my own, the majority of my relationships never went past a couple of years, maybe, with the majority of them being a few months. And then I met my son's mother. We'll just kind of call her A. And I met her in recovery because I'm a recovering drug addict. So obviously I got a lot of things stacked against me. But I met her in recovery and I figured, oh my God, this is perfect. She's a perfect person for me because while we're both trying to heal, let's make a relationship happen from that and get with the 13th step. Shortly after we started dating, she got pregnant. Obviously that's how that works. And I went into, I'm going to be a dad mode. Growing up, I always had a belief system that I was going to be a better dad than my dad was, even though now as an adult, I look back and I see how amazing my father was. My father was not my biological father. I never really met or got to know my biological father. So my father, who adopted me when I was 6, I have his namesake, I have his last name, I have his same middle name. He became my blood for all intents and purposes. So as I'm going through this process of now I'm going to be a father, the first thoughts that I had was this, that I was never going to be the kind of dad that my biological father was. I'm never going to abandon my kids. I had all of these thought process of I'm not going to have 4 children from 4 ex-wives and trying to play the child custody game. When I get married, that vow is going to mean something and we're going to be married forever. As we're now dealing with a child, we're both young. I didn't realize as a kid that while I was growing up, I was also watching my parents grow up. My son now is 17 and a half. He's going to be 18 here really soon. I've had custody of him since he was 5. What got me involved in parent rights is the experience I went through and many of the misconceptions that I had about fathers' rights. I believe the same thing that most people do. Dads get screwed. You get put on child support. Child support is something that is designed to make it so that the mother never has to work and you have to maintain 2 homes. And I believed those things for a long time. In 2001, 2002, I ended up working for ORS. In the state I work for, they're the ones who do child support, obligation recovery, working the cases, who's responsible with it. And with that, that's where I really got into fathers' rights per se, was I started to see behind the curtain and I realized that in most cases, it's choices that are made that causes the most issue for dads.
Yes. In fact, I've actually spoke on this recently. The whole thing is a game, right? So you have to learn how to game the system. You have to learn the things that what is going to make you look the best. Who cares about your emotions in it, right? Oh, I feel like I don't want my wife to be, or my ex-wife, or the child's mother. I don't want her to be able to see this kid on this day. I don't give a fuck what you want. What you want is you want yourself to look good, so that whenever you go to court, you can say, I did everything you told me to do.
So I agree to a degree. I feel that a lot of times judges are treated like things that they're not. So without getting into a whole bunch of it, and we can if you want to, but a lot of people assume that like judges are out against people. When you go to a civil situation, so you're in a court where you might have your own attorneys, but there's not a jury who's deciding your case. It's the judge. The judge actually acts as the prosecutor and the defense. So everything you're saying in court, if it's hearsay, then they go, that's hearsay. So it has nothing to do. You can keep talking about it all you want. But a lot of times in court, you want to look good. But if you're like sitting there going, well, she was out sleeping with 17 other people and adultery is illegal. Yeah, it is, but you really should look into how that actually becomes a crime. Just accusing them of it doesn't do any good, even if they did it, even if that's the grounds for your divorce. Where child support and child care and who's going to be the custodial parent is concerned, judge doesn't care. And so that looking good or wanting to be righteous where the relationship ended,
A judge
that's
does
where most
care.
guys screw themselves.
A judge does care who the parent's going to be. The parent is going to be who's going to be the custodial, because what they want is they want what in their opinion or what the system, the state has determined is best for the child.
Yes.
That is what they want. So they do care who the custodial parent is. They don't.
They just don't care what the other parent did in the marriage.
Correct. Yeah, to an extent. Because if you can prove that the other parent is a dirtbag or morally inept, right? Their moral compass is off, and they're actually going to do something bad for the child, then they do care about that, right? They may not care if you do spicy content. Oh wait, but they might, because it depends on the judge. And this is something I've said, that state law, county law, municipality law, and then ultimately the judge, right? It comes down to those four things. Now, if you can learn those things, and then whenever you go to court, you do everything you need to do for you. You do what needs to be done for you to look the best. Then whenever you get up there, you can say, Your Honor, I've done everything I'm required to do. I make sure that they have clothes on their back. I give them food. They're in school every day. I didn't go against your custody order as I was fighting to let them see. Or I showed up to where I was supposed to be, but the other parent did not. They fought me tooth and nail. I'm doing everything I can and everything you asked me to do to get my child and to not have to pay child support, or to make sure that my child has the best future, right? So these are all the things that you're doing when you're in court. There are laws. You can have an attorney. Your attorney can bring forward evidence. The evidence can be brought forward. Then it's admissible in court.
So then at this point, we're almost talking on two different levels. So there's the initial divorce where we're now trying to establish custody, or are you talking about when custody's been established and the other person is violating it? Although they both work the same way in a court, where it's focused on is slightly different. One of the things that I had presented was there's a Divorce University online has a video that I sent a link to. And
I watched a little bit of it.
And there's a lot of information in there that's kind of a little bit flippant in a way, but when you pay attention to the things they say, you should do this and you shouldn't do this. Talking to every attorney for family rights I've ever spoken to says that is 100% accurate. Realize that your attorney isn't always doing things in your best interest. Your attorney is doing exactly what you're asking them to do because they're getting paid to do that. And so many times I've seen parental attorneys go and fight for something. They're never going to win because they get paid regardless.
So here's my question, Daniel. During this whole thing, it sounded like your child was 5, right? Or 4 or 5.
Yep.
4 or 5. So did your child have a guardian ad litem?
Yes.
Which is an attorney that is doing everything specifically for the child.
Yes. Okay. We were A and I were technically both the defense, separate cases. We weren't on, we each had our own attorney. Right. My child had a guardian ad litem. They also had a CASA, which is basically a rent-a-grandpa. It was very cool. The whole process for me, I know I got lucky, but a lot of that is because there wasn't a whole bunch of underhanded things going on. We just kind of got the 5-year itch, the 7-year itch, which is very common in divorces where the dopamine and the oxytocin is gone. And so you just all of a sudden aren't into each other anymore.
Yeah. You bring up the 7-year itch. So, the 7-year itch, in my opinion, is a crutch, right? And I go on this, I've been married 18 years next month. You really think that I didn't go through the so-called 7-year itch? Sure. But that also doesn't mean that I can just, I'm a 7-year itch. That's why I'm acting the way I'm acting. No, we need to fucking grow up and be adults as well.
So I do agree with you, but I'm also going to state that the 7-year itch isn't necessarily that all of a sudden I have an excuse to leave. The things that made me ignore those things about you. So like if like I clean out my ears with my car keys, oh, that's adorable. 5 years in, it becomes something really, really annoying to you. And you can't believe that you have spent 5 years with the person who does that. But after 5 years, you also find it difficult to expect them to change. But those little things start to bug you about the partner nonstop. By the time you hit divorce.
Again, though, these things come down to being an adult. You made your bed, now lie in it. You took your vows say for better or worse, for sickness and health, for richer or poor. And guess what? The things that you loved about them in the beginning, you may not love about them now, but guess what? For better or worse. This is worse. I said that my vows were going to be the way they were. See, we're talking about two different things now. We went from father's rights in court,
right,
to now we're talking about the fact that you should stay with your significant other. And if you choose to lay in bed with somebody and have a kid, then you should be the adult and say, guess what? I made my bed. I'm going to lie in it. And then you wouldn't have to deal with so-called father's rights.
But doesn't that also give you justification to treat your partner like crap and they just need to stay?
No.
Should you be allowed to go and sleep with whoever you want to because you made a vow for sickness and health? And if you're going to go out and sleep with any hooker you want to, should that not be something that they just live up to because they vowed to stay with you? If two people are not meant to be together, shouldn't they go, hey, as an adult, 5 years in, whoa, we shouldn't have done this. And now you and I can't get along, but we created this little child that has nothing at all to do with you and I not getting together. We should be adults and do what's right for the kid.
What it sounds like is that you probably should have fucking figured all this out before you laid in bed. Right?
Absolutely. But how often do people do that?
Nah, I don't think that's the problem. How often? It's the fact that it should have been done. Right? We can talk semantics on, oh, it doesn't happen very often. Oh, people just don't do that. People should be better. Yeah, but that isn't what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is these are the things. You said, does that mean that somebody could go fuck around? No, that does not mean that. But guess what? That also doesn't mean that your spouse should be saying, oh, you fucked around on me, divorce.
But we're talking about parental rights. And so at the point where we're talking about this, the divorce has happened. I agree with you. People who shouldn't be together should never get married. There should never be a child. But when we have divorce, the fact that we have divorce and the fact that in those statistically, the belief system is that men get screwed. They're never going to get the kid. The wife is going to get alimony, palimony, child support, and everything like that.
So a lot of that comes down to, you're absolutely correct. This is what we're talking about. And I'm glad that you were able to pull us back to that. So what happens is that the system is designed for women to be single moms so that they can get benefits. The system is designed for all of these things, right? Welfare, fucking Medicare, Medicaid.
I disagree.
You disagree that the system is designed that way?
Where child support is concerned, I disagree.
No. This is absolutely set for destruction of the nuclear family. The whole system is set that way. And
child support is set for the child.
No, it's not.
It is. So the problem is that a child can't manage their own money. The child can't manage their own money. They have a custodial parent, and so the custodial parent has to manage those things for the child.
No, that's where you're confused. So
okay.
The money is actually supposed to go to take care of the child. It's not the child's money.
Right, exactly. So the overhead, the rent, the power, those are all parts of it.
No, so the statement that you made is because a child can't take care of their own money. The money is not theirs. The money is going to the parent to take care of that child. It is your portion of raising that child. That
we are in
is
agreement
what child
there.
support is. It is supporting the child.
Correct,
So
which is why it's an obligation.
Correct.
Right.
So,
we're arguing the same point.
Yeah, we may be arguing the same point, but your verbiage is completely wrong.
Okay. I feel that my verbiage is based on the fact that most people look at child support as something that is paid to the mother for her to go get her nails done and for her to go and buy this. This is what most fathers get upset about, that the child support isn't going to the kid. First things first, I don't know of any child support obligation that's paid that can fully cover a child's home. If I owe you $20.
Right. No, hang on. Bring me back up here, Alvin. Hang on. You said to fully fund a child's home. No. It is your 50% of taking care of that child.
It's not even that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's your portion that the child would have access to if it was a completed home.
So if a mother, if it was a completed home. So if a mother goes and gets their nails and the money goes into the bank account, you cannot determine what dollar is being spent on their nails, on their perm, on their whatever. So if you're going to say that, oh, my 50% you're spending on this, nah, that's a fucking fallacy. Listen,
agreed.
I have one of my buddies decided not to take a fucking pay raise because they were absolutely buying fucking season tickets to the St. Louis Cardinals. And if they didn't have that money, she was remarried. They were both making good money. And she was taking that money and buying fucking season passes while he lived in a fucking mobile home, right? So this is where we got to have the discussion of difference. So the mom can go get remarried and make good fucking money. And since you're being paid, you have to pay half of your fucking income. Now you're fucking broke in the goddamn streets almost, right?
Hold on. Whoa. Who do you know who's paying 50% of their income?
Well,
that's the maximum allowable by law. 50% of your gross income is the maximum you can pay out in child support. So even if you have 7 ex-wives and 7 ex-kids, the maximum obligation that you can be required to pay is 50%. But that obligation is an obligation. So although they can only take 50%, you might end up being in debt over the other part, in which if the child ends up in some kind of care for like if a grandma takes care, well, now the state is paying the grandma that child support obligation. You're on the hooks for that for life. Right, even if the child passes away, you can still be required to pay that amount.
As you can see here, Alvin brought up raising a child. Well, let's try and get that to go away, Alvin. Raising a child can be an emotionally rewarding experience, but it can also be very costly. Statistics from the Brookings Institution, an economic think tank, show that the average middle-income family with 2 children will spend $310,605 to raise a child born in 2015 up to age 17 in 2032. So, right. I mean, that's quite a bit of fucking money.
Right. And child support obligation rarely even comes close to hitting that number. It's a drop in the bucket.
Okay, so then what is your whole thing, right? Father's rights. What rights do fathers not have?
In terms of understanding and in terms of getting custody of their child, there are a few things that are currently taken into account statistically when you start looking at most states. Until the age of 10, scientifically, according to the psychological profile of children taken during Dr. Spock's era, a child is better off with the nurturing parent. So you end up with situations where parents...
Actually, a child is better off with 2 nurturing parents living in the same home.
That, again... Yes, but we're talking about in a situation where a child is in a custodial situation. So with that, yes, a child would be better off if there was still a father figure. Child would be better off if they were in the situation. But when we're talking about custodial situations, when the judge is deciding which parent should be the custodial parent, if the 2 parents cannot agree, cannot come to terms and figure out what's best for the child, because it's a civil situation, the judge doesn't want to make a standpoint. They want the 2 adults to behave like adults and come up with a co-parenting strategy. That's part of what's not really being taught. We get an attorney, the attorney goes and fights for whatever you want, instead of going, hey, child needs both parents. So one person having full custody of the child just because you're mad at each other, doesn't make any sense. And most judges don't see that as a valid argument. This is where a lot of times the father's rights, I feel that fathers don't have enough access to education.
Okay.
And when there is access to education...
Wait, did you say they don't have enough access, or are they just fucking lazy? Because there is the
I'll give
fucking
you both.
internet. There's
I'll
the
give you
fucking
both.
internet. The access is there.
Well, yeah, okay, so even with the sites that I had also sent, so I'd also sent one for weborse.com, and I'd also sent another one for tfrm.org, okay?
Okay.
So the fathersrightsmovement.org, great website, has a lot of things. It also wants you to sign up, and it wants you to pay some money to do things. And a lot of times, like we're talking about, if a father is already paying child support, it's already going through the custodial situation, they're already having money taken out of their check, and now they're being asked to pay more just to be part of an organization that can't promise you anything. That's kind of crap. Women can go to the Dove Center. They can go to the Rain Center. They can get free assistance just about everywhere they go. Fathers don't have that. What I advocate and what I ally for is free access to the same legal rights that women get when they want to go to get a divorce.
Okay, so who's paying for this free access?
In this situation, the same organization's range should be funded by other fathers. When they can't do it, people who've been helped, people who have the ability to help should be. I don't necessarily think our government should pay for it. I don't think they pay for RAIN. I think there's grants that they get, and I think that we should be eligible for the same grants.
Hey, listen, that was a solid fucking answer. So what are you actually putting a foundation like this together?
No, like I said, I also wanted to make it very clear. I am in no means a professional. I don't have a degree in this. I have an anecdotal situation that has led me to doing years of research. Like I said, my son was 4 years old when I had to go through this process. I have been a custodial parent of my son, as well as a non-custodial parent for a child I've never met, didn't know I had, paid child support for 18 years, still haven't met him. And so with that view...
Well, but that comes down to that child being your blood, though, right?
Both of them, yeah.
Yeah, so whether you meet the child or not, you fucked that girl, got her pregnant.
Oh, yeah, no, I paid child support for 18 years.
Yep. And now there has been a movement of people talking that I kind of agree with, that if you choose, so do choose, right? So in this case, you have a child that you had never met, you had sex with a woman, because if a woman can have an abortion and not ask the man's fucking permission, and then you get a girl pregnant and you don't want to be a fucking parent, you sign off all your rights, you no longer have legal or financial responsibility. I kind of agree with that.
Okay. So then the question then becomes, once you sign those away, if the parent is destitute, then who takes care of that child? Something I know you're against. They end up on welfare. And then the government ends up paying money, and your taxes end up paying money to take care of that child.
Actually, I'm not against welfare.
Okay.
Because welfare is supposed to be a step up, a hand out, so that you can move forward. What I'm against is people taking advantage of welfare.
Okay.
Now, but what you asked was, what happens when the other parent becomes destitute? Well, then you shouldn't have fucked the whore, right? So,
but the child still exists. You just advocated about signing your rights away.
You chose to sign your rights away. So if you choose to sign your rights away, whatever happens to that child is no longer your concern.
Correct.
If you're worried about what's going to happen with that child or with that fucking mom, then maybe you ought to step up and say, I'm going to be your dad. I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to do my fucking damnedest to fucking see my child instead of just signing a fucking check every month.
But see, I believe you do care what happens to that child. So like you sign it away.
I do.
You sign it away. So if the other parent signs away rights to that kid, then they don't care. And literally they could care less whether they die in the streets or not. What I care about is the aspect of that child still exists. So where in the abortion argument, the child no longer exists, we don't need to worry about it. Nobody's got to feed it because it doesn't exist anymore. But when we start talking about the father being able to sign his rights away, the child still exists. And if the mother stops caring or throws it out or puts it on the streets, who pays for that child? Everyone. And so while I agree with you, the child shouldn't exist. If the parents aren't going to get along, the child shouldn't exist. They should never have been married. When it comes to parents' rights, the child's already there. Understand, when I had my son, My belief system was that me and her were going to be together forever. I gave a set of vows that I honestly believed. In fact, the vows were far more important to me than the concept of marriage was. I now don't support marriage. Marriage is a contract between you and the government. If I decide to spend the rest of my life with someone, I shouldn't have to become an organization in the government's mind just so that I can say, hey, yeah, we're the same person. We're the same governmental entity. We can buy a house together. What we're talking about is
you can buy a house together without being married, by the way.
Sure. You don't get the same benefits. You don't get the same tax breaks. It costs you more. You get to become an organization. You get to use both of your credits together. You have to create an organization to purchase a house together, or they become a co-signer. But if you're married, it automatically happens. You automatically get to use the other person's. You get more breaks by being married than by not being.
It's actually mandatory if you're married. So,
well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You've created an organization. When you get married and you have that marriage license, you, in terms of the government, have just become a corporation. You now are.
So just know, I don't disagree with you that the agreement with the government, you don't need one. I personally see what you're saying, that whenever I get married and I sign that fucking paperwork and I take it to the county, and now they say you are legally married, that is a government document bringing you together, right? So you can be in a partnership without being married. The only thing that you lose are some of the benefits, but that can be mitigated in other ways, like building trusts, like you said, fucking a corporation, whatever. But if you build a trust and everybody becomes a trustee, now the trust owns everything. You're no longer worrying about it, and then the head trustee can actually remove people off of the trustees or off the trust. So if you do decide to separate, you can just remove that person's name.
Granted, and well, with the trustee, that's easy. With the divorce, it's not. I mean, the benefits that you're talking about. Yes,
you don't have to worry about divorce.
Pardon?
If you don't get married, you don't have to worry about divorce.
Correct. Which is what I'm doing now. But children still exist regardless, and whether you're married or not, children can still exist. You can still have sex and produce a child, whether you're married or not. You still have to go through custodial and parental rights, whether you were ever married or not. I'm only using marriage because I was at the time. But what we're talking about in terms of children and the children rights, most of the arguments that you're making don't matter because the child already exists. There's no point in going to court if the child doesn't exist. So just because you were stupid and did something stupid and had a child you weren't prepared for, shouldn't change the fact that the 100%. Child now exists.
100%. But I also think that, as you, right? You said, I'm a non-custodial parent. I have never seen this child, but I am paying
my
child
second
support.
Child, yeah.
Yep. Never seen him, never met him, but I'm still paying child support.
Yep.
Okay. So are you paying child support because you feel like it's the right thing to do? Or are you paying child support because the court said you had to?
I'm paying child support because it's my child.
Well, then why aren't you actually seeing your child?
Because in order to do so, there's certain things that go about. It's not just what's right for me. There's also what's right for the child. So understand first off that I didn't even know she was pregnant. In fact, I had to be called out of work after we had been separated for almost 2 years to take a DNA test, which is when I found that out. Now, if I did decide to go to court and force it, the things that were put upon me was that I needed to go down to DCFS. I needed to pay $75 an hour for a person to watch me with my child because the child didn't know me as a parent, and therefore I couldn't be trusted with the child. And her concerns, because she had been the custodial parent since it was born and the child was under the age of 10, anytime we went to court or anytime there was a discussion with an attorney, it was always the same thing. It's like going, understand, I'll go and fight this for you, but your odds of getting what you want where you have equal time with the child is going to be an uphill battle. Going into some of the other studies that we've gone through, the average parent who is required to do DCFS for visitation will spend on average 3 years paying $75 per hour per visit, and that number might have gone up since I was looking into it back in 2010, which is when I originally had to look into it. It might be more, but that's what you're going to pay just so that you can spend time with your child. Going into court and having to argue that with an attorney just becomes more expenses. In this situation, the child didn't know me as a father, and the stories that the mother had told this child at the point in which I was in a position to be more there for them, because at the time I was dealing with another child, had another baby in the house, and while it might not be the best thing in the world, it was the decisions I made at the time. Like I said, we were all growing up at different times. And that child was being supported. It was coming right out of my check. I made sure that I set it up that way. I didn't want to have to write a check every month because I wanted to make sure if I got paid, that other child got paid while I'm raising my child here. In the years, that child has now turned 18, and that child has not chosen to reach out to me. They've never met me, but they've learned every story they've had. And from being in the same state as that child for the full 18 years of their life, there has been about 7 or 8 times in which I've been able to make contact with a friend or family member and ask them, hey, would you please let this child know that I do think about them, that if they ever want to know the other side of the story, I'm there for them. They've chosen not to. But it's still my responsibility. So rather than trying to hide and not pay that child support, I made sure it got paid for 18 years because it's an obligation. I'm obligated to take care of that child I created.
So there's a couple things that you said. You were talking about the $75 an hour, right?
Yep.
To me, that sounds like a fucking money grab from the government.
Yep.
Everything that we're talking about, and just like child support, the government takes a piece of it, right? The government gets paid from it. And that is what all of it is about. It's about gaining money for the government. Everything is. And
I'm not going to argue. However, I'm going to tell you that those organizations exist for a reason, and we can't ignore the reason that they exist. So while I'll agree with you, the $75 an hour to have a person sit there and watch me interact with my child in a 10 by 10 room is absolutely asinine. But DCFS exists because of the amount of children who were in abusive situations, were left in homes in which they had no access to food or running water, left in diapers, had wounds and things like that because of straight abuse. So while I will agree,
other people take advantage of it whenever the resources could be used to take care of the kids.
And that's how it morphed into the conglomerate it is now.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. But what we're getting to is I was trying to get to with the money that the government wants, and then you're also saying, right, like you want to be a part of this kid's life. So I have problems with family, and my mom, my dad, right? There's problems. I don't have a very good relationship, and I have told my mother this. Oh, I want to have a relationship. Well, then get off your fucking ass and come over and try and build a relationship. It's not up to the kid to build a relationship with the parent. It's up to the parent to build a relationship with the kid. And I feel the same way with my kids. It is my responsibility to build a good relationship with my kids. It is not my kids' responsibility to build a relationship with me. So it is up to you to reach out, to send a letter, to do this, to do that, to make every effort that you can to build a relationship with your child if you want that relationship.
So you're assuming that I didn't do that, and I did for the first.
I asked, and you said no.
No. Okay. So did I force myself into their life through court order? No. I did not make a state official force them to meet with me. I did, however, send probably in the first 5 years, I want to say it was about 22 letters. I sent them both to her mother's house, as well as to her home and things like that. I did everything I could to make sure that the door was open, that they could meet with me if they chose to. At the same point in time, many decisions were made in that time that led me to believe that that's not what was best for the child.
Right. But an open gate in a stall, a horse won't go in. Just
say that again.
An open gate in an arena or a stall, a horse will not go in. So you may have an open door, but that doesn't mean that they feel welcomed or invited.
Do you feel like, though, Daniel, at the time, with it being such a new experience, that you didn't have the resources available to let you know what your options even were? Because as a new parent, it can be very overwhelming.
I still don't think that those resources are available. I still don't think that in most cases parents even know where they can go. in order to find out what it would have taken to create the injunction to go, I either would have had to have paid an attorney, and at the time, it was a local attorney here, and I believe he was charging $450 an hour, with the free consultation saying that he believed that it would probably take about 5 to 10 hours on average to bring up each case before we went through, and that I should look at seeing a judge probably about 5 or 6 times. Considering at the time that was over half of my rent, not including what I was with other things, I felt lost. I did learn that I could have filed those injunctions myself, but I only learned that after literally doing probably about 2 or 3 months of research to find the actual documents that I would have had to have filled out, a company that would print them out for you, because you can't just go to the courthouse and go, hey, can I get form 272B? It's the one that does this, because that form doesn't exist either. You actually have to petition the court. You have to go through a process of the way that it's legally read. If you don't type that up right, then it'll just get thrown out, because you actually have to type it up the way an attorney is trained to do. We talk about money and we talk about expenses. And at that time, I had a child that I was taking care of, that I was now the full custodial parent of, that I didn't have any help from his mom. I had another one that I was paying child support on. I was working 2 or 3 jobs at the time just to keep everybody in my house fed. And there were lots of things that you don't have the assistance. There is no RAIN center here in where I'm at for men. There's no Dove center for men. There's no place where I can go and get that assistance for men. So when I talk about fathers' rights, that's what I'm referring to.
Well, I think it's a very valid point that you bring up the Dove Center or those other organizations that are impactful for women, because not only do those come with valid resources, but then the fathers are fighting against not only the mother, where they may or may not agree on, but they're fighting against organizations that are trained and helped and pushed and biased towards the mother, regardless of whether that's the best situation for fathers or not. Do you have any resources that you have found, or sources that would be a good indicator for fathers? And if so, what are those?
Again, a lot of it is something that you kind of have to patch together. I have yet to find, and that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just haven't found it. But like the ones that I brought up, the WeVorce is a great resource for things to keep in mind when you're starting the process of a divorce. There's a lot on there that helps both parents, but it helps you understand what goes into a divorce. Learning and educating yourself about bifurcated divorces, those are important too. In talking about fathers' rights, the fathers' rights movement is awesome, but like everybody out there, everybody's trying to make a buck on something. And so there is a cost involved to doing these things. And if you don't utilize the platform well, then you don't get your money's worth out of it. It might educate you, but you might not get the full education. I know a lot of things about a lot of things, but I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on anything. I just know that in my personal experience, what I found is that even when you go looking for where's the book, where's the rule, where's this all written down, it's in so many different places. It's almost as if it's designed to be difficult for you to do that.
If there was one thing you could have done different in the situation to with custody, or a piece of advice, what would you have done different in the situation? Hindsight.
I would have focused only on my child. In fact, in the advice that I give, so often are people caught up in the fact that the person that they wanted to spend the rest of their life with doesn't want to be with them anymore. And the emotional destruction of that, basically being told, you're not good enough, I don't want to be with you anymore. That hurts so deep that you want them to hurt the same way you're hurting. When I went and inevitably did win permanent custody of my son, it was because she did everything wrong. Had she done anything right, I might still be fighting with her to this day, at least for another 6 months until he turns 18. But if I'd have not made it at all about me, if I would have just accepted that, you know what, she doesn't want to be with me, that's over, it's end, the marriage is over, it's now about just my child and what's best for my child. And how do I do that? Then, hey, you know what? If it's going to be best for the child to have both parents, okay, well, we can't be in the same room together. So let's figure out the best way to do this. Co-parenting, and there are thousands of books on co-parenting. Read any one of them. Learn not to hold a resentment against your ex-partner and use your child to hold that resentment. That would be the number one advice I'd give for any parent.
Isn't that the same thing that I was alluding to when we were talking about your second child and you're just signing a check, right? It's what you focus on your kid. You
Yes.
focus on the child. And
oh, we fully agree with that. It's I think the part where you and I don't even think we disagree. In fact, I think on almost every topic we fully agree. We just see it slightly different as far as who's getting screwed and how they're getting screwed, what's important and what's not. For me,
I think we're all getting screwed, to be honest.
Well, some people get screwed less.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah. When I tell my story, when I go through the whole process, I know full well I got lucky as hell. The fact that I have full custody of my son was quite literally because everything she could have done wrong, she did. But if at any step she'd have fought and tried to be a good human being for even 1 second, I probably would not have won full custody of my child. Simply because the only reason that was lost was she continued to commit crimes after we went to court, and she kept getting busted for them. But the reality is there's nothing psychologically that made me better for the child. There was, other than the fact that I wasn't committing those crimes. But if you start looking at all the people, there was no reason why I should say my child should not be with her.
So on that point, Daniel, you said that she continued committing crimes, right?
Yep.
She continued committing crimes, so that was the benefit that you had.
Yep.
So what would have happened in this scenario in coming down to father's rights? Whenever you work and you work so hard to advocate for father's rights, what are the things that a father can do to make sure that they have a solid argument or they have all of the right materials so that when they come against somebody that is doing the right thing, that they don't get screwed? Because
the name of your show. The name of your show. Fuck your feelings. Quite literally, the best thing that you could do is, one, know what the difference is between a law being broken and your feelings being hurt. She slept with your best friend. Okay, adultery is illegal. Yeah, in order for it to be illegal, it actually has to be caught by the officer and knowing that it's happening while in the middle of coitus. That's the only way you can be charged with adultery. So it 100%. Doesn't matter. And to my knowledge, in most states, the judge doesn't care about adultery. It's just the grounds for the divorce. Like, okay, irreconcilable differences and she cheated. Okay, I'm going to grant you the divorce. But typically, they don't care that somebody slept with somebody else. You can talk about it nonstop in court and they don't care.
There are a lot of laws on the books that are fucking retarded that they just don't enforce.
Yes.
Right? It's kind of one of those things where, like, oh yeah, there's a law in the books for this, but like you said, unless they catch you like mid-stroke, it's not like they're going to charge you with anything or it even matters in a court of law.
Yeah, that comes down to a speeding ticket too. Like, I can call and say that you were speeding, but if a cop didn't see it, you weren't actually speeding.
Yep.
And is that something a cop is willing to show up for? And bust
no. Always show up to court. I mean, to point out the subject, you get a ticket from a cop, always show up to court, because if they don't, you're done.
Correct. You don't have to pay anything. But no. So this goes down a whole nother rabbit hole of what you're saying. And I think that I could talk about this for a long time, because whenever it gets down to the things that cops do, the courts do, the judicial system, the laws that are on the books, how you can avoid the laws on the books, all that, I could talk for a very long time. And the only reason I ask, what is some of the things that a father can do to ensure that they get their rights, is because what you're talking about in father's rights is only if the mother is fucking up. Because otherwise, the mother is going to get custody.
So, I don't, statistically, the statistics would side with you, but very marginally. The reality is that since 2005, those numbers have come within 2% of each other. So you're talking about 52 to 48%.
Yeah, I agree with you. My aunt lost custody, and she's a great person.
Right.
She worked really hard, but my uncle, right, that whole battle, she did not gain custody.
Courts are under more scrutiny now to establish what they mean by a better environment. So there are things that, like, when I belong to I belong to the Mankind Project. A lot of the people in the Mankind Project are single parents, single fathers. It's a men's movement. It's a fraternal kind of order thing. It's like a brotherhood. But I talk to them a lot, and I do a lot of work with a lot of those men, and I say, hey, you need to spend more time focused on what is best and what you actually provide. So you go to court, who has the most solid home? Well, okay, we both have a home. So whose is more solid? Well, I've got a bit more space. They don't care about that. Does your child have his own room? Does he have a place? Does he have what the state requires? Does he have a bed, a 3-drawer dresser, 5 changes of clothes? Because in the current state, that's what, I have to check again, but I'm pretty sure that's our current state minimum. They have to have a 3-drawer dresser. They have to have 5 changes of clothes. They have to have a mattress and a place to keep their stuff. That's it. That's all that's required by the state. So when you start looking at what's best, okay, I have family in this state. So they have access to cousins, grandparents. They have access to, I have a close-knit circle of people that are always there to watch my child. So when I have a child who may have to come home from school and I'm not there because I'm working, I have a network of people who can take care of that child. If I have more of that than they do, then currently most judges will then see me as a more stable foundation for a home.
Yes, and something else that you need is you need tactical gear. And the best place to get your tactical gear is from warhorseordnance.com. And you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, right? So you have to be able to provide a solid foundation. And if you can prove that you can provide a more solid foundation than the other person, then you are, and you're doing better. Because in this case, in this case, with my family, he had a better job, right? He had a little bit more money. It was a financial difference. And then it came down to them playing mind games with the kid. And then the kid ultimately chose at the end of the day where they wanted to go. So
that's a real thing too. After the age of 10, most judges will want to know the opinion of the child, but it's weird.
State.
It seems to
that's
be 10.
State. That's state.
Yeah.
Because ours is 14.
Oh, is it?
Missouri is 14. Yeah. At the age of 14, you can choose where you want to go.
Well, no. In our state too, it's 14. The child can actually start the injunction. But at the age of 10, most courts will actually ask the child where they want to go. It's part of the process.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's something I'd have to look into for knowledge of myself. But that's some good stuff. Hey, Daniel, I really appreciate you coming on today. I think that we had a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And I absolutely appreciate what you're doing, advocating for fathers' rights. And I really hope that you get out there and you advocate more, because it sounds like you're on a pretty good foothold. And you should probably look into starting a foundation, trying to get people together so that they can get the finances to the fathers that actually care about their kids, and the ones that actually care but don't have the money to afford a good attorney, because we all know that a public pretender isn't really going to do their job. So I just, but at the end of the day, I want everybody to know you're not special, buy American, and fuck the ATF.
Drag them in, and I'll follow you until the day you die. I tell myself I've done this before. It's hard to get a handle on you walking out the door. So just take another message to the people who know more. The talk is growing